For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. And on tonight's episode, we are joined by Connor Newcomb of Locked On Orioles once again to dive into part two of our projections, which is over-under for the Orioles and their players based on the projections posted over at Fangraphs. We're going to get on that in tonight's episode, which is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for betting on all the madness. Even if your bracket is busted, BetOnline has more ways to stay in on the action with a free Sweet 16 bracket and live betting on every remaining tournament game. With the largest selection of odds on everything from college basketball to MLB, NHL, and MMA, BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every Cinderella story to every hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. And as we've done every year here at Orioles on the Verge, we're going to take some projections that have been posted publicly leading up to the season, and we're going to guess whether an Orioles player is going to outperform or underperform based on those projections. In the past, this was kind of a ending to our regular predictions episode, but then the number of over-unders we were coming up with was so long that we just decided this year we're going to break it out and make it its own episode. So, Connor, I'm going to bring you in for this one, our first prediction. Over-under 5 F4 for Adley Rutschman, which is what Zips has him at for 2025.
Hammer the over. Hammer it. He is winning most valuable Oriole. He is getting the most MVP votes on the Orioles. He is not just bouncing back. He is surging to a new level. I am hammering the over. It's going to be a good defensive, good offensive season. Easy over.
Yeah, I just predicted Adley to bold prediction to win the league MVP award, so it's going over.
Yeah, he had 5 WAR in his rookie season at age 24, 5.6 in 2023. So yeah, I think we can clear over 5 this season for sure. The second half, I think, of 2024 is going to end up being an anomaly over the prime of his career. So yep, over.
Clean sweep. I think he would have gotten over 5 last year if not for the sharp downturn in the second half. He avoids that this year and he gets the over.
Jackson Holliday at 9 home runs and a 108 WRC plus in 110 games. So what do we like about that line, Zach?
I'm going to go over on both. I think the WRC plus is going to be higher, and I think he finishes around 12 to 15 home runs. This is what Oopsie had in 110 games for him, and I think he's going to get more action than that, so I think that this is going to be over for both numbers.
The Jackal is going to go way over all of these numbers. 140 games at least, 115 WRC plus at least. I already said 15 home runs on the previous podcast. It's a breakout season. Give me the over.
I think the 8 home runs is actually an easy over. I think it'll be a slight over for the WRC plus and for the games played. I think he'll sit against some lefties. You never know what the production will look like, but the homers, I just feel like just from seeing Jackson, people are thinking he's going to be more of a 10 to 15 guy, whereas I think he's going to be an easy 20 homer guy once he gets going in the big league. So I think, to have the projections at single digits, I'm taking an easy over.
Yeah, this is another easy, clean sweep. I think young player who wasn't very good for a lot of time. He was up last year, so projections, I imagine it's hard to come up with a good projection from him. And as Rock Kabako pointed out today on social media, there is a banner and a T-shirt in the store. So this is the season of Jackson Holliday.
Absolutely. How about Ryan Mountcastle, a divisive player in the fan community, 24 and a half home runs, over under, Nick?
25. Over.
I know half the Discord is going to be mad at this response. I'm going to go under very slightly, 23.
I'll go under in the low 20s. Maybe he gets over 25, but not with the Orioles. I think that's also a possibility here as well.
That's a good call there. I just don't think he's going to play enough to hit 25 home runs. If you look at things right now, he's kind of a short side platoon. I mean, obviously he'll get some run against right-handed pitching too, but this offense is so good. You gotta find room to fit him in. So I'll say under. I think he'll be in the teens, the high teens.
All right, let's go to pitcher projection now. Oopsie has Zach Eflin with a 3.89 ERA and a very close FIP at 3.83. Nick, are you taking the over or the under on those numbers?
Over. It's a 3.98 ERA for Zach Eflin this year.
Nice exact number. I'll go under. I could see him in like the 360s, 370s, but I mean, not under by much, but I think he's going to be efficient. He's got a good defense behind him, so give me the under.
Connor, what are your thoughts on this one?
I will take the under. I will. I don't know. I'm just trying to be positive about the pitching right now. That is my goal right now as a public presence, is to be positive about the pitching, because we've just had too much time to be negative about literally any arm on this Orioles team.
I'll go under slightly, but I'll take the under on both numbers.
All right. I enjoy that. Don't let the YouTube comments beat you down. Felix Bautista, 25 saves. Connor?
25 saves. So he is not going to do back-to-backs. He is not going to do multi-innings for a while. We don't know how long. I would guess at least the first 2 months. I mean, he's not going to have any kind of Jim Johnson type workload where he's racking up 50-plus saves in a year. I think the Orioles are going to play some close games, certainly, but they have the offense to beat some teams by more than 3 runs. Man, that is a really good number. I'm going to say under, not because he has setbacks or anything, but I think the Orioles have so many other good options to fill in for him early in the year, and then he just doesn't get enough chances to do it later in the season.
It is a good number. I'll say a little bit over 25.
Yeah, I agree. It is a good number, and I'm going to go over 28.
Push. He gets the 25 saves the last week of the season there.
All right. Colton Cowser should have been Rookie of the Year last year. Does he have more or less, over or under, I should say, 21 home runs? Zach?
I'm going to go over. I think there's clearly some things that Cowser has to work on, particularly the swing and miss. But you look at how hard he hits the ball, the ballpark he plays in, and the 24 home runs that he hit last year feels about right to me. I don't think he's going to go out there and have a huge year over what he did last season, but I see him closer to 24, 25 home runs this year. So I'm going to go the over.
Yeah, I will take the over. Even with me in the last episode talking about how he could be the disappointing player, I don't think that would be because of a home run total. I think even with a high strikeout rate, when he puts the bat on the ball is going to fly, as it usually does. And I think even if he has a down average year with a high strikeout rate, he will play enough to hit over 21 homers.
Yeah, I agree. And just because, so much emphasis on that wall is how it's going to help the righties, but as many lefties have come out and said, it's going to help them as well. And I don't know how, I don't have Colton Cowser's spray chart here in front of me, but I imagine it's going to be a little boost for him as well. And yeah, over 21 home runs for Colton Cowser.
Yeah, easy over for me. I think he's pushing 30 home runs this year. I think he doesn't get enough credit for the amount of power that he has in at bat. If he even cuts down the strikeout rate a couple percentage points, then it's just gonna help even more.
Charlie Morton over under 3.29 ERA, which is what Oopsie and FGDC had pegged for this season. Connor.
3.29? I love a Charlie Morton, but I'm going to go with an over a 3.29 ERA. I'm going to look up when was the last time Charlie Morton went under a 3.29 ERA? Let's see. He went under a 3.29 in 2019 with Tampa Bay. That was his big 6-WAR season. I will take the over on that.
Yeah, I'll take the over on that. I do think he will have a better ERA than Max Scherzer or Justin Verlander and win that old man battle. but yeah, over 3.29 for sure.
I just had to step in real quick and correct that number, 4.29. Just double check that.
4.29.
Yes.
The 4.29. That does make more sense for Charlie Morton projection in the year 2025. I will take, well, he's gone under a 4.29 in 3 of the last 4 seasons, so I'll go with the under now on a 4.29.
Yeah, I'll go under. I think it's probably right around 4, whether it's a little bit over, a little bit under, but yeah, less than 4.29. Somewhere between 3.29 and 4.29 for sure.
I'm going to go a tad over. He's still going to be a very effective workhorse for this team, but I'm going to say slightly over for Morton.
I agree with Nick. I'm going to go over. The value that he's going to give you this year is that he'll pitch well over 140 innings, probably even over 160 innings. Decent strikeout numbers. He'll keep the walks down, but I think you can reliably pencil him in for an ERA probably in the 4.3 to 4.5 range.
Right. Newly signed Kyle Gibson is down, stretching himself out after being just signed. 139 innings on the year, according to Zips. Bob, over under Kyle Gibson giving us 139 innings.
I think he will give us less than 139 innings, and I think he'll probably be between 100 and 120, maybe. But I just think there's a lot of good options, and like we talked about in the last episode, especially in the second half, it's going to be interesting to see if everybody's healthy, how's this rotation going to work out in the second half? That's probably not going to be the case, but yeah, I'll take the under for sure.
I'm going to go well under. Talked about it on my show this week. I think there's a chance that the Orioles made that signing as super depth and that he could give them 3 or 4 starts when they need it and they could just cut him loose. I think the nice part of having David Rubenstein is you can give a pitcher $5 million and just have him there in case you need him. And I think because he's Kyle Gibson and what he's done for the Orioles and the fact that they brought him in, they will give him a few starts and at the very least go to a 6-man rotation for a little bit, skip some starts, just to get him in that rotation for a little bit. But if they do that for 3 weeks and nobody else is injured and nobody else is performing poorly,
big Orioles cut him off.
Let him go find other places as the mic comes back.
You found their secret plan. Couldn't have you saying that live on air.
I'm going to go with the under. That feels like a pretty safe under because he's not going to start the year in the major leagues. And I agree with Connor that just because he got $5 million over a 1-year major league deal doesn't mean he's guaranteed to stick on the roster all year. I wouldn't be shocked if he sticks on the roster all year, but I don't view it as a formality.
Yeah, I'm hoping we don't see more than 139 innings from Kyle Gibson this year. I'm not a hater. I just am praying for good health from a lot of younger arms and younger guys stepping up that have good seasons this year.
Absolutely. How about Kobe Mayo? 179 plate appearances on the season. That's from the bat in ATC. That's what they have him with. Let's go with Connor.
179 is... What if he's a starter? You're looking at 50-ish games of him starting, or you knock that into a bunch of pinch hit appearances. I'll say over 50 starts. Maybe they really just do move on from Ryan Mountcastle and throw him in there and give him that chance this year.
So I looked this up. Connor Norby last year between the Marlins and the Orioles had 194 major league plate appearances. And that was with fairly regular playing time over the last month or so with the Marlins. So I'm going to say the under for Mayo on this projection, although I feel like it's a pretty solid one under the present circumstances with the Orioles. I just feel like for him to get over, it's going to take, as Connor suggested, maybe a Ryan Mountcastle trade during the season or an injury to Mountcastle or one of the other hitters that right now is blocking Mayo from major league plate appearances.
I'm going to say under as well. It's going to be super frustrating for a lot of people. I'm sure no one more so than Kobe himself, but I'm going to say under.
I'm going over. It doesn't say specifically with the Orioles, so if he's part of a big trade at the deadline, then I could certainly see him playing every day after that. Or it could be a trade of somebody else or an injury, like we said, or maybe he's just banging the door down in AAA. They like what they've seen and they find a way to make room for him. So I'll say over.
Going back to pitching now, Cade Povich is a 4.24 ERA per Zips. Nick, you're taking the over or the under?
I'm going to go the under on this one. It's between 4 and the 4.24 there. But yeah, year 2, Cade Povich, Slim Shady, here he is.
I mean, he had a sub-3 in September. I know that's 1 month. Who knows what he looks like this year in terms of how many starts he gets. He's going to have a big chance here, though. He's going to have, at least 5-6 go-arounds in the rotation before they would even think about going to someone else, whether it's Gibson, whether it's Grayson, whomever. I'll say under. I think he can hold that spot.
Smash that under. I think his final ERA is going to start with a 3, and like I talked about in the last episode, I think he's due for a big breakout this year. So, yeah, under 4.24.
I'm going to take the under as well. I think there are going to be some ups and downs with Povich this year, but I kind of expect him to finish with an ERA in the low 4s. So under 4.24, I'll go with the under.
All right, Tyler O'Neill, 25.5 home runs. Zach?
If he can appear in at least 135 games, I'll put the cutoff around there. I'm going to take the over because as he has talked about the adjustment to his approach as he moves out of Fenway Park to Camden Yards, he should be able to take advantage of all fields a little bit better. And I think you're going to see a nice uptick in power from him this year, as long as he is healthy. So I'll take the over.
Over. I do not think home runs will be the issue for Tyler O'Neill. Strikeouts and health and defense could be at times, but when he is in there, he is going to hit home runs. And even if he's injured, I think he will be in there enough to hit the over on that one.
Yeah, I want to be different and say under because he'll be just under it because of a stint on the IL and the test and Kerstad taking some of the bats away. But yeah, I think it's over. I think he's going to be like the 3 or 4 hitter, I think, in this lineup most nights. And he's going to get some opportunities with some protection behind him as well. And yeah, home runs are going to be in abundance for the Orioles in 2025. And Tyler O'Neill will be a big part of that.
Yeah, they told him the wall was coming in, and he said, absolutely, I'm coming to Baltimore. And he's going to show those guns off this year. So well over 25.5.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. You chose to hit play on this podcast today. Smart choice. Progressive loves to help people make smart choices. That's why they offer a tool called Auto Quote Explorer that allows you to compare your Progressive car insurance quote with rates from other companies. So you save time on the research and can enjoy savings when you choose the best rate for you. Give it a try after this episode at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
All right, Jordan Westberg, 3.2 F-WAR, which is what Steamer has him projected as over under. Nick?
What was he last year? Do you guys have that offhand? If I can get it real quick. He was last year at
2.8.
2.8. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna go over just because I think it was Connor who mentioned the first episode talking about F4 and being an accounting stat. As long as he's healthy for the full year, I think he can eclipse that number.
I'll say just barely over, maybe a 3-win player. I see there. I wouldn't be surprised if it's slightly under. I think that's a pretty good number.
Yeah, I do agree that it is a pretty good number. I'm going to take the over on it. I could see him pushing 3.5 maybe if he has a full healthy season and the power continues to show up, especially with the wall moving in, he gets up closer to 4. But I feel like an F4 in the 3.2 to 3.5 range is about right for him.
Yeah, he's all over the map. Oopsie has him at 2.9. FGDC has him at 3.7. He's all in between there with all these different projection systems. I think he'll be right around a 3 WAR guy year in and year out, as long as he's healthy. Some years better, some years worse. So I'll say slightly under.
Sir Anthony Dominguez, 7.5 home runs allowed over under. And if you wanted to be snarky based off his performance in spring training, you could ask me if that's in a month or in the full season, but that is in the full season. Nick, what are your thoughts?
I'll stick with the optimist route and go under, just because the home run totals looked a lot better when he was with the Phillies in kind of that setup role. So yeah, hopefully, I know he's probably going to be asked to close some games here with, easing Felix back in, but I'm going to say, look, that spring training with the relievers, like whoever it was that said spring training is just about slapping asses and playing golf. The relievers are going to step up in the regular season. Dominguez is going to find it.
Yeah, I mean, before last year where he gave up 12 between the Phillies and Orioles, the most he'd ever given up was 7 and 4 before that. So I'll say under, but it'll definitely be close. He is a 4-seam fastball guy, loves to work up in the zone, so he's going to give up some bombs here and there. But let's hope spring was spring, and now that the calendar's flipped to games that count, he'll be back to the pitcher he always has been. So give me the under.
I'll say over. I don't think it kills him, though. I do think he's going to set a new career record for innings this year. His previous was last year at 58 2/3. I think he'll, if he stays healthy, pretty easily eclipse 60 in this Orioles bullpen. I just think they're going to ask a lot of this pen this year, and I think Dominguez is a guy they're going to ask a lot of. And with more innings with a pitcher like him, with the stuff he has, and especially against lefties, he is prone, especially in this ballpark, to giving up some more homers. I think that the majority of them will be solo homers, and it won't absolutely crush him, but I will go over.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Connor on this one. I'm going to go over. I'm going to say it's lower than 12, but more than 7.5. But when you look at the stat line at the end of the year, it's not going to put a huge dent in his production. And most of those home runs are not going to be the type that you look back on at the end of the year if the Orioles say, lose the division by 2 games. You're not going to look back at the home runs that Dominguez allowed as a reason why that didn't happen.
All right, Cedric Mullins, 50 at-bats versus left-handed pitching this year, Bob.
Under. I think he's pretty much going to be a platoon guy. He's going to start on the bench most, if not all, games started by a left-handed pitcher, and come in late in the game for defense, running pinch hitting opportunities. And even when he starts, there might be times when a lefty reliever comes in and he's going to get booted for a pinch hitter, and they can always have Cowser shift over to center field if that's the case. So I'll say under.
50 against lefties. He had a 43 WRC plus last year against lefties. It's just, what I will say is that Ryan O'Hearn was in a full platoon last year, and he had 44 plate appearances against lefties. He still found his way into that. And because Mullins will find himself in games later for more reasons than O'Hearn ever would, I think there will be just more chances in extra innings or whatever when you can't go to the bench again that he'll have to face lefties. So seeing that O'Hearn faced 44, I will take the over. I won't love it, but I think just the circumstances of how he fits on the roster, say he pinch hits, sits against a lefty, pinch hits for Laureano in the 7th because a righty's out there. He goes to center field for the rest of the game. You already have O'Neill in there. Laureano's out of the game. And all of a sudden, you're in the 10th and a lefty reliever's out there. You're not going to burn Gary Sanchez. He's just going to have to hit there. And I think that'll happen enough where he goes over 50.
Yeah, I agree with Connor, even with the acknowledgement from my last show that I think the Orioles are going to trade for Kyle Tucker and relegate Mullins to the bench more in the last couple months of the season. There's going to be a lot of times where you're going to have to run Mullins out there against lefties. And I also feel like, for better or worse, Brandon Hyde is kind of a creature of habit when it comes to his defensive alignment. So there will be times where he'll just trust Cedric Mullins in center field more than he trusts Ramon Laureano in a tight lead. So that might mean that Mullins has to go up and have a garbage time at bat against a left-hander with 2 outs and nobody on in the bottom of the 8th inning. The other thing is, if you're ever in a really desperate situation, just have Mullins drop a bunt down. If you got a guy on and he can just get him over, or if he could somehow bunt for a hit, that could be a workaround. If you're ever in a situation where you need him up there against a lefty because you've already run through your bench too much, or you want him out there because of his defense.
Hey, that would help my under case because that doesn't count as in a bet.
True.
Yeah, I'm going over just for a lot of the same reasons you guys mentioned. They're going to want Mullins out there in different scenarios. And yeah, it was bad. But I'm down on Mullins as well. But I'm really hoping that there's no like dreams of an extension or anything like that. But I'm hoping, because everyone seems to be collectively down on Mullins and what he can provide this year, I hope he surprises a lot of people and has a really, really strong, productive final year here in Baltimore.
I kind of think he will, especially if he plays mostly against right-handed pitching. He hits righties pretty well. I think he'll be like a 110 WRC plus guy. So we'll see. Another outfielder, though, Heston Kjerstad. Why would you sign Taylor O'Neill when you're trying to open up some space for Heston Kjerstad? Will he get more than 400 at-bats in 2025, Zach?
I'm going with the under on this one for a couple of reasons. One, I think it's going to take him a while to break out of that platoon mold. And it's tough because you're not going to know until he has a sizable number of at-bats against left-handed pitching if he is actually a platoon option going forward or he's an everyday player. But the Orioles, in the position they are in, are reluctant to run him out there against lefties. And I think it's going to take a while for him to get to the point where the Orioles are willing to have him go out there with a left-handed starter on the mound, or not pull him for a pinch hitter in a tight spot, especially with Ramon Laureano around this year. Not to mention, there are clear defensive limitations with Kjerstad, and although the wall moving in left field this year should help that a little bit, I still think you're only going to put him out there in an emergency. In other words, if every other seemingly viable option to play left field is somehow unavailable at that given point, you're not going to want Kjerstad out there. So I think that's going to bring the at-bats total down a little bit, and I'll go under, say he finishes like around 350, 375.
I'll go slight under. I was trying to look at some comparisons for playing time. Ryan O'Hearn had 368 plate appearances in 2023, but I believe he didn't really catch on until May of that year, potentially late April, before the Orioles kind of realized he's more than a pinch hitter for how he produced that year. Kjerstad will be on the roster to begin the year, which O'Hearn wasn't, so that should help. I think it'll be close to that 400 number, but a bit under. I think he'll certainly benefit from Tyler O'Neill's injuries, and I think it all depends on how much O'Neill gets hurt. I think Kjerstad will be in and out with O'Neill healthy, and with O'Neill down, I think Kjerstad could play almost every day.
I'm going to say this is the year he hits the over. He somehow, some way, whatever magic the Orioles use, and maybe some of that is injuries, but they will get Kjerstad in this lineup more often than I think people think he will be. And he's going to eclipse that 400 at bat mark.
Yeah, I agree. I think he'll be like around 425, 450 when all is said and done. And I think, between Tyler O'Neill being a little injury prone, even if he's strictly a platoon guy, Kjerstad, I mean, he's going to be on the strong side, and I think he'll perform. So, give me the over.
Grayson Rodriguez over under at 130 innings, which seems like a reasonable aggregate of the projections at Fangraphs, which run generally in the 120. So Zips has him 121 innings pitched, and then you go up to Steamer that has him at 129. That's the range right now. Obviously, when you're guessing this one, you have to factor in when we see him in 2025. But Connor, I'll start with you. Over under 130 innings for Grayson Rodriguez.
Under. He missed 2 months last year and threw 116 and 2/3 innings. I think him missing 2 months this year would actually be a good outcome for just the worry of, even though it's not ligament damage, for just the worry of it being an elbow. And that's 116 and 2/3. And let me tell you, when he comes back, I don't think they're going to let it, have him let it rip for 7 innings every night he goes out there. So even if he does come back for 4+ strong months, they're going to slow play him. They're going to skip some starts. They're going to do everything they can to make sure they have him in October. And I think that means going under that number.
Yeah, I think it'll be under. I think it'll be like 120. Hopefully, hopefully it's not anything that there's a setback and he needs to miss even more time. So I'll say under, but I'm hopeful that it can at least get close to that number, 130.
To go along with my prediction from the first episode, I'm going to say way under that 130, unfortunately.
I'm going to take the under as well. That's a good call there by Connor, pointing out that with the 2 months he missed last year, he was pretty well under that total. And I agree, if he only misses 2 months this year, it's going to be a good outcome. So I'm going to take the under on that. And with that, now we'll move into last call, brought to you by Checker Spot Brewing, our new sponsor here of our final segment at Orioles on the Verge. Located at 1421 Ridgely Street, you can find Checker Spot Brewing not too far from Camden Yards, making it a great pre- or post-game stop. And on top of that, new this year in 2025, you will be able to get Checker Spot Brewing at the ballpark. Look for the Bird is the Word, one of their signature beers, behind home plate at Orioles home games this year. And that's from Checker Spot Brewing, the sponsor of our final segment. And let's go into a prediction for the Orioles' best player, or one of their best all-around players, and that is Gunnar Henderson, who's going to begin this season on the IL, but will hopefully be back after a very brief stint there. Over under 6.4 F-WAR in 148 games, which is what the BAT and BAT-X have projected for Henderson this year. Now we'll go back to Connor.
So for 148 games, I believe he'll miss a minimum of 6 if he comes off the IL immediately. So that bumps him to 156. And I think because this year's side issue gave him a little more trouble and made him start the year on the IL, maybe he'll get a few more off days. But 148 is still 8 more days off for one of the best players in baseball. I'm going to say that maybe the IL stint is a little bit longer. He gets a few more off days and he settles in around 145. And because of that, I'm actually going to take the slight under on the F-WAR as well. Not that he can't produce amazing numbers, but it is really, really hard to be an 8-WAR player, and it's even harder to do it again. And I think with this in the mix, the Orioles are going to, again, just with Grayson, but in a different level here, are going to want to make sure he's full force ready to go in the second half. And so we may see a few more Gunnar off days than we're used to, and this team has enough depth to withstand that.
Yeah, I think the games is the tougher one. I think he's going to be over on the F-WAR either way, just because if he was fully healthy and on time this season, I think he would have beat his 8 F-WAR from last year. So I think he can beat 6.4, get in the high 6s, low 7s, even if he misses 10 to 15 games or 15 to 20 games, whatever. But as far as 148 games, I think that's a good number. I think he'll be right around that. So I'll just say over altogether.
I think he's going to show a little bit more defensively this year, which may help any, dip in production, whether that's due to lack of playing time, due to the injury or more off days or whatever it may be. But I think he's going to make up a little bit of that in defensive value, which bumps up the F-WAR there. And I'm going to go over.
I will go under on the games played, but over on the F-WAR. I said on our last show that I think he'll finish top 3 in AL MVP voting. So it's going to take one of those really good stretches over a slightly shortened season for him to get there starting the year on the IL. But I do think that will happen. And that does it for our over-unders. Now, Connor, I want to go to you here for a moment. Can you tell our listeners what you have in the works over at Locked On Orioles? Now, I know we share a lot of listeners, but for anyone who isn't listening to Locked On Orioles, let them know why they should be.
Yeah, so we are everywhere you get podcasts. We're on YouTube as well, Locked On Orioles 5 days a week as this season kicks off. This week on the show, Wednesday, is kind of finally the Kyle Gibson breakdown. I was at a wedding all weekend, so despite the signing happening Friday and being a daily show, I didn't get to Kyle Gibson until Wednesday, but I thought that was appropriate because he won't really be ready until May anyway, so we have some time to think about Kyle Gibson. I really broke down, okay, what could his role look like? And I talked about it a little bit on this show, but why he may not even play that big of a factor, and it's just nice to be able to throw $5 million at someone who may not even help you. Thursday is kind of cleaning things up, opening day roster, recap of game one, maybe a live stream over at the YouTube channel if there's a win on opening day. And then the podcast kind of just rolls into the season format. If anyone who's not familiar, joining us for the first time this year, we recap the game from the night before, the morning after, 5 things you need to know, recap the entire weekend on Mondays. It is very game heavy because that is what the Major League Baseball season is, very game heavy. And when you record 5 days a week, you do a lot of game heavy content, but try to dive deep into roster moves, some minor league stuff, everything you kind of need with the Orioles 5 days a week.
I do want to mention this before we let you go. I did not have a chance to run the numbers before tonight's show, but I believe that you are now either tied or very close to tying John Mioli of the Baltimore Banner for most frequent guest in Orioles on the Verge history. So this could be the battle of the season off the field in Birdland, is who's going to finish the year at the top spot for us.
Yeah, I'm gonna do a right at the camera right now, John. If you're watching, I'm coming for you. That was I just cut a promo right there.
2025 storyline. We talked about it on the last episode.
And with that does it for this episode of Orioles on the Verge. Bob, Nick, and I will be back next week on a different night, probably Tuesday or Wednesday, as the Orioles open at home. On Monday, we'll have some coverage not only of the major leagues, but of the Norfolk Tide's first weekend of action and the break camp rosters for Chesapeake, Aberdeen, and Delmarva. Should be out by then, so we'll probably break those down as well. In the meantime, you can check us out on our many social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky, and Twitch. We're also over at Substack, OriolesOnTheVerge.substack.com. And while you're browsing the internet, be sure to head over to Patreon and sign up to become a member of our community today. Throughout the regular season, you will get bonus weekly shows from Bob, Nick, and myself, as well as monthly Top 50 Prospect Countdown updates and exclusive access to our patron-only Discord channels. You don't want to miss that. For Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens, this is Zach Spedden. You've been listening to Orioles on the Verge, presented by BetOnline and part of the Believe Podcast Network.
If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine. And maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them. From disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.